this is Abina at Cross Keys Crafts. Today I would like to show you how I created this card. This is made with stamps from the Creative Stamping Magazine issue 122. That's the late May issue or early June issue. And I was intrigued really because I love all these biscuits here, and I had a flick through and this gave me the idea for this card. There are actually two stamp sets in here. One is this one for the teacups. This is a Crafter's Companion stamp set. Let me show you this here. And it's a layering stamp set. So I'm going to use this one for the teacups. And then I've got these here. They're all higgledy-piggledy on the folder now. These are all the biscuits, and there are also some coffee cups, teapot here, and some sentiments and flowers. This is really, really nice if you can get hold of that, or maybe you've already bought it and haven't used it yet. So this one is a 4x6 card, but today I would like to create a 4x4 card because I thought this would be really nice if you had to mass produce this for some invitations. I think I'm actually going to use it as a homemade voucher. I like to take my friends out for tea or afternoon tea, and I think this would be really nice to give that away. Sometimes I use that as a present. So I've already marked my cardstock here. By the way, this is a very thin cardstock for the background. I think it's about 160 GSM because I want to tear it in the end. And I've marked out a square here, which is 4.5 by 4.5. But I know obviously I won't keep it that size. I will tear it down, but it gives me an idea where I need to place my stamps. So I will be using, I haven't figured this out yet for this one. With this one, I took quite a while to figure out where to put all the biscuits. And then I still managed to get the custard creams round upside down. So I will pay attention to that this time and figure this out. Yeah, it's the right way around. So that will definitely go on here. And it doesn't matter if you've got a bit of a gap in the middle, because that will obviously be covered by the teacups. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm choosing the obvious biscuits, and you can also lay them down like this. They don't have to be in a row. I also want to be conscious. Let me just measure that I'm not tearing anything of the biscuits away. So this is 3.5 now. I think that'll be okay. And I like the bourbon. And then I just need a little one. Probably use the macaroon again. See, now I've got an issue with this one, so I might just do this sideways. Maybe just put the bourbon on there and that nice one down here. Yeah, I think that will be just fine. I'll move these outwards a little bit. As I said, this will mostly be covered. I think I'll just leave it at this. It gives you an idea anyway. You can work on any format that you like. So just make sure this is straight. And I'm using my stamping platform. That helps me, especially if I wanted to mass produce this. So what I'm going to do with this now, you can't see that now, let me zoom out again. I'm going to ink these up now with my Versamark, and I'm going to use clear embossing powder on them. What they will do is, once I've heat embossed it, this will resist the ink I'm applying. And I've just mislaid my Versamark. Bear with me. Yeah, I found it. So I'm just inking this up. Sorry if I'm a bit off screen there. Oh, one thing I forgot to do and quickly will do is I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool on the cardstock. And it's always a bit tricky to see on the white cardstock. But if I hold this against the light, leaving this in, I can see I've got it everywhere. So I'm not removing it until I've actually checked that. So now I'm going to apply the clear embossing powder. And if you haven't seen me do that, I'll keep mine in a box because then it's less mess, especially if I work on a small format like that. So I can just put it over with a spoon, give it a bit of a tap over the box, and then there's no mess there. So I've got a bit of a spray on the side there. So I'm just using a clean brush. Again, I've mislaid my smaller brush, be with me. So I'm just using this fine brush and I'm just taking the few specks away there. So I'm going to heat set this off camera now. What is important is that you heat your tool up properly before you apply it to the cardstock, and I like to do it from the back at first just to set the powder a little bit. I find that especially my clear embossing powder, it does spray a bit. It doesn't really matter because this is a background, but if you want to have a very neat result, it's better to start from the back and then apply it on the front. So I'll see you in a moment. You can tell that you've properly heat set if you get the shine on the embossing powder now. So I've also cut this down now. I like to keep it as a big piece when I've got it in the stamping platform just to hold it down properly. But now that I'm going to apply ink, I cut it down, and I've got a piece of scrap paper in the back to protect my work surface. So with the last one, last card, I used the vintage photo, which I think is really nice. But for this one, I thought I'd use a different colour scheme, and I want to keep it in blues. So I'm going to use my Elements, Lavinia Stamps Elements Blue Atoll for the background. And all I'm doing is I'm going to ink blend over this now, and the embossing powder will resist the ink. So I'm just making sure I'm not having too much. I'm starting very lightly. And this is a fairly smooth cardstock, so it goes on nicely. It's a bit splodgy there, but I'm not too bothered about that at the moment. So I'm going to speed this up now for the video. So I've got a bit of a splodgy, or you can see where I've worked around, but I don't mind this too much. I think it's quite nice. It looks a bit like clouds. So you can see that you've got the clear embossing powder there, but what you should always do is as well use a tissue and just wipe any excess off, and then you've got a very clear image. You can obviously get a similar effect if you use white embossing powder on your background, but I really like this emboss-resist. I think it's a very nice effect. On this card, I also want to use another effect. I just want to use a few splatters of my water and do some full bleaching. I didn't do that on the other card, but I think with a darker background it would be really nice. So I'm just using my water bottle, and I'm just using the tip here. I might have to get a brush out as well. Yeah, I will do that. So I've got a bit of water here on this lid, and I'm just using my fan brush, get a bit of water on that, and then I'm going to tap it. See, that's much better. And again, it depends on your preference how much you would like on it, and you can see that the ink reacts with the water straight away. So this will really be a nice background. What you might want to do is you might want to cover up the middle though a little bit, because now that the background is turning white again, you can't see the contrast that well. So all I'm going to do now is I haven't dried this, but I think it'll be fine. I just go over the biscuits again with my blending brush just to get the pattern and the writing out again, and you can see it reappears. I didn't ink this up again. I had enough residue on there. And there you can see I've got this back. So as I said, you might want to cover up the motif in the background. So I'm leaving this to dry for a moment, and I'm going to stamp my teacups. For the teacups, I'm using a heavier weight cardstock. This is about 250 GSM, because I want to raise it on foam pads. I like this if it's quite sturdy and not too flimsy on the top. So these stamps are really great. They are actually numbered, so you know in which order you have to use them, or what they suggest you use them, because I'm sure I did it a slightly different way. First thing I did is I used the number 1, which is this one here, where you've got the most solid piece of the stamp. So I'm just in my stamping platform. So for this cup, I used my Lost Shadow. When I bought the Lost Shadow ink, I wasn't quite sure whether I would use it and whether it would actually be dark enough to use on white cardstock, but I think it's really, really lovely. And it has got this sort of, I wouldn't even call it grey, it's like a brownish beigey grey, and I think it's really, really versatile. So the reason why I used this, I knew it would go with the vintage photo ink, but it's also neutral enough to do anything else. So this is a really good color to have. So I'm just going to ink this up, and I remember from last time I had to ink it up twice because this is a chalky ink and the stamp does resist it a little bit. But one thing you need to remember, although I'm cutting it out, you need to take the ink off the number there. So I'm just using my finger and rub that off if you don't want that on your projects. So as you can see, it's not quite solid just yet, so just applying a bit more. Just to blend that in a little bit. Oh, magnet's in the way up there. So I like to press it down as well a little bit and just let the ink seep into the cardstock. I think that gives a nicer solid look. There you go. So as I said, I think this is really, really nice. So, and then they suggest, let me just check, doing the flowers next. Where are we? Oh no, sorry. They suggest doing the rim next, but I'll keep this off for a moment and I'll tell you why. And then they suggest these flowers to use as a third, but I found it really, really tricky to align these. So I started with the leaves, and they gave me then the outline to put the flowers into. So I thought that was much easier. So because here I can very clearly see where the leaves go. Check from the side. Once I've put it down, I like to lift it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be an exact science. So for this one, I'm going to use my lime punch. I like the bright green on this. Again, use your finger on the number. Just pressing this down lightly this time. There you go. Very nice. It does overlap a little bit, but it doesn't matter. So, and now I can see where I've got the white gaps now, where the outer flowers go, which is the number 3 on this one. I thought this was so much easier. So this time I wanted to go for a blue color scheme, so I'm using a light blue for the full flowers here and then a darker blue for the middle. So let me just check what I've got. I'll try the Frosty and Bright Polar Blue. This is a Harmony by Spectrum Noir. I don't think they still make this one. I think they changed the range. But any colour is really fine. Yeah, I think I will do one of my application, and there you can see I didn't wipe the 3 and I've got it stamped there. So either don't ink it up, or if you do ink it up, use your finger on the top. It doesn't matter for this one now because I'm going to cut it out, but make sure you wipe it. Yeah, that's better. So now the last one, which is the inner of the flowers, and again now it's very easy to align these. Take your time with this as well. Obviously if you want to mass produce these, you do all steps 1 first, then step 2, and so you don't have to align these for every single card. So I'm going to use a darker blue for these now. I think I use my VersaFine Clair Bluebell. Oh, but oh, this might be a bit too dark. No, I'll go for it. And you can stamp, obviously, with the oxides. You can stamp with the VersaFine Clairs. It doesn't really matter, whatever your preference is. Yeah, it's quite dark, but I don't mind this. I really like this. So all that's left for me to do now is to do the little tea bag here. Should have done that with the first stamp, but I just do this on the side here. I'm going to do that in the Lost Shadow again, I think. No, I think I will actually do that in the blue, just to tie in the dark blue of the flowers. Yeah, it says take life 1 cup at a time. So I'm going to, nope, before I fussy cut these, I need to stamp my first set, which is this here. And what I did with the other one, at first I used some ink to stamp the outline here, and then I actually used my glue pen. I'm just considering whether I actually need to stamp this or whether, I think this is quite straightforward. I use my glue straight away. As I said, with the other one I stamped it first, I wasn't happy, and then I used my glue pen and some foil. And I think that's what I do straight away now. So I can tell from the stamp that I need a line at the top, then I need the handle, and that's the same with all the cups here, just the top and the handle, and then I've got the rim here of the plate, and I could actually put a bit more on the other rim there in the back. So I'm using this quickie glue. I got this from Lavinia Stamps, and I'm just going to apply this just a bit on the side, testing that it's rolling properly. You can also use a zig glue pen, and just on the handle there, it's flowing quite nicely actually. I do have a hair on it. And like with the zig glue pens, this is blue, and once it dries and gets tacky, it'll turn clear, and I know that it's ready to use. So I'm not going round the full way, I just stop there. So I'm leaving this to set for a moment, and then I'll show you how to apply the foil. So the glue has dried for about 1 minute, that's all you need. And I cut a piece of this holographic silver foil, and I'm just putting it over the motif, and I'm just pressing down. And I can see where I had the glue does actually show on the card, and I'm just rubbing without shifting the paper. You can also use your bone folder if you want to do that, just to get some extra pressure. And when I lift this off now, the foil has come off. I've got a bit of a gap there on this cup, so I can see if I can reapply that, because the glue is there and it's a bit more solid. If you're not happy with it, you can always go back with your pen. And if you've one thing you need to be aware of, you might have some glue on the foil here, and I actually now have got some residue that I've got in a different place, so be aware of that. Also, if you've got some stickiness now on the motif that you don't want, just use your anti-static powder tool over it, and that will get rid of the stickiness. I'll just see if I can apply a bit more down here. But sometimes I find I take the glue off and then with a foil, and then they've got no glue left there. But I like the patchy look actually. You see, looks like vintage cups. As I said, the only thing I'm not happy with is that little bit there, the silver bit. I don't know if the camera catches that. So I'll see if I can use my eraser and get rid of that little speck there. Yes, I managed to get this off with my eraser, so just be careful that you don't take off any paper or ink. So all that's left for me to do now is to just ink over this with my lost shadow. I just want to tie this in a little bit with this colour, and then I'm going to fussy cut both of these off camera. So I didn't think, when I ink blended over this, my blue ink really became dull. So what I did is I put the lost shadow down first, ink blended there, and now I'm going to stamp over this again, just with my little stamp block, sorry, acrylic block. It's very quickly done. And then I've got a much nicer finish. Let me show you the two in comparison. So that's worth doing if you want to have a background. Do the background first and then stamp over this. So as I said, I'm now going to fussy cut these, and then I'll come back. Yes, I want to put in a little disclaimer. I'm not an expert fussy cutter. I just used my little nail scissors. I especially like that if I got some round motifs. And I use it this way round for round bits that go this way. And then I turn it round and cut from the other side when I need to go round this way, rather than going in the corner. But I could have gone a bit more in here, I think. But as I said, I'm not an expert. And the more I try to get it right, the more actually I mess it up. The other thing I noticed again, sometimes I picked up a little bit of the foil there, because I think I've still got the sticky fingers, so just be aware of that. It's not really easy, as I said, no expert. That's why I never film it really. So this is ready now to stick on the card. But one thing I want to do that I did on the other card as well, I want to use my ink blending brush just around the edges, just to tie it in with the background. So I'm just using the residue I've got on my brush here, and I'm just going in on the edges, basically just brushing my blending brush just here on the edges, and that just leaves a bit of ink on the top and on the sides. Try to get into the corners here as well. And I just used the blue. You could come in with a lost shadow again if you wanted to, but I think this gives a really nice look, and I'm doing the same here with the little tea bag. So for the back of the card, I'm going to tear this now to size. As I said, this is now 4.5, so I know I need to tear off at least 1/2 inch on either side. I just start on one side. I've got a metal ruler here, and just being aware of where the biscuits are, just starting here, and I'm going to just lift this up here and just tear it whilst holding the metal ruler down, and this gives me a fairly neat edge like this. So I'm working my way around now and just being conscious that I sort of tear off equal amounts or equal sizes of strips. I can actually now measure this and see how much I need to take off. So yeah, if I want to have it, if I tear another 1/4 inch off, sorry, almost 1/2 inch, that should be nice for my 4x4 card base. So I'm just measuring this, just making sure it'll be square. So that's 3.5 inches now. So this is, I need to tear it in between those two dots. And that will give me a nice border as well on the card base. So there we go. So before I stick my teacup and the tea bag on, I need to make myself a little twine for the back. And all I'm doing for that is I'm using just some normal sewing thread. I get a long piece. Let me zoom out a little bit as well again, so my hands are not going off screen. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use this double, and then I'm going to twist this. Sometimes it's useful to wet your fingers a little bit. So I'm just turning this in my finger, and then you can see it's wanting to wind up there in the middle. So I'm then doubling this up again, make sure I stretch this, and then I'm letting this go like this. And this gives me a nice thick piece of twine. So don't let go of the ends here. These are going to get stuck down now on the back. So, and with the last one, I just had it come out, sort of come out on the top here of the teacup there. So I want to stick it down like this. And you can just use some tape or some glue. Just using my tape here. If you, like me, need 3 hands, just put your ruler down there, and that should keep it in place for the time being. So, and then you can decide what length you want in the back here. So I think I just want just a little bit. Maybe just about here. So again, I'm going to tape it down in the back. I'm not worried about this. I'm going to cut this off in a moment, but I'm also cutting off the thread down here. So I can peel this back a little bit now, and without cutting the thread, I can just cut this off there. So now I just need to put these on foam tape or foam pads. Yeah, I'm just using my rectangle foam pads here. I'm putting one across here as well to make sure this doesn't come off. This is cheap foam tape, it already comes off on my fingers. But for these little jobs, I sometimes like to use these up. I think they might be from the works. Also cut some a bit slimmer and have a bit for the side here. Ideally I would have cut this before I stuck it down, but I thought it would be shorter because you don't really want to mess up your scissors. It's easier to cut these when they're still on the release paper. So I don't know if you could see what I was doing because I just sped up the video. I just had to move this up a bit more because I didn't want this to come out of the handle. It needed to go up a bit more, but that wasn't a problem the way I've stuck it down, and that will be fine now. So it looks a bit more natural. Same with this one here, but yeah, I think this is really cute. So all that's left for me to do now is to make myself a card base, which is 4 by 4. So I'm going to cut a piece of paper 4 by 8 inches, and I'm going to halve it, and I'm just going to show you the finished card in a second. Yeah, I think this is a really, really nice note card. I will use this as a voucher, so I'm not putting a sentiment on the front. I will just put then the greetings and the invitation inside. And yeah, I forgot to say, if you don't have any foil, you can obviously use the stamp with some Versamark and use some embossing powder to create the metallic effect. So yeah, and this is the bigger version, the 6 by 4 as a Get Well Soon card. Yeah, if you like these cards, you might want to give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of what I'm creating, you might want to subscribe to my channel. I'd be very happy about that. And I'll see you soon with another video.